All right, everybody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Okay, so we got two questions. We started off with one. We've got two questions, and now I can't remember what they are. It's nice to have two computers. I can pull it up and look. Um, oh yes, I remember now. But I wanted to read it to you because this is actually very cool. Okay, so let me go to my YouTube stuff here on the other computer. Um, You know, I used to try to, I guess, harvest these kinds of emails to try to put them in my kudos page, kudos, however you say that. Um, because these kind of emails, these kind of comments are very flattering, right? And even though I don't, you got to know that about me, right? I don't, um, because of my Christian beliefs. And I'm it's hard to explain, right? Um, when I say that, I'm not wrapped up so much in the cultural side of that. What that means, I have sort of like my own weird ideas, so things that might be okay for other Christians. And I'm not putting anything down that they do, okay? It's just that for me, I consider a lot of the sales stuff that goes on to be very dishonest, right? So I don't go out and pay people, for example, to say nice things about my stuff. I don't do that because I don't think that's truthful. Okay? If they're getting anything out of it, you're just using that to help make money. And maybe other people are okay with that. I'm not okay with that. So I don't operate that way. But when they do come in on their own, that's different. And I used to like harvest these, but there's so many of them now, right? I mean, it's hard to actually keep up with them all, especially now that we're doing all the YouTube stuff and all that. Anyway, this is from a guy named Javier in Chile. He says, "Hello, Eddie. I bought the Trumpet Pyramid Method and the daily routines about a month ago or so. It's great. My tone has improved a lot, and my trumpet playing skills as well. It's so well structured, smart, and effective." Oh, we like that, don't we? Smart and effective. I play a trumpet as a hobby, and I wanted to know, where do I put free playing according to your method, like practicing a solo from a song or just improvising? Thank you very much. Greetings from Chile. So, yeah, we like those kind. Now, I'm going to answer his question, right? Um, but we like those kind of questions, those kind of comments, right? Because not so much because, oh, now we get to like sell and let people know, hey, we've got a good product. No, it's not that. It's the fact that people are actually still, I wrote that daily routine book that he's talking about in 1988, 89, and then we published it in 90. The first years I moved to Houston, really, that's when it started. And people from all over the world. Here's someone from Chile, right? Literally all over the globe, people are using this book and it's helping them. Now, the newer books are better. They're just not finished yet. So, but yes, that's just amazing, right? So he wants to know, where do you put your free playing? So I want to real quick go through and talk about practice sessions. I do 3 different kinds of practice sessions. Let me look at Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Eddie. How are you? Believe it or not, I was just listening to a song called "Where's Eddie" by pop singer in the 1970s. Here I am. Anyway, so I I practice and teach three types of practice session. The first one is the routine, right? The second type of practice session is technical stuff. And what I mean by technical is different from what other people mean by technicals. I'm talking about scales, arpeggios, and other technical patterns. Okay? When I'm talking about technique, that's what I'm talking about. If you're practicing technique in my system, you're doing those three things. And by the way, the technical patterns, that's advanced stuff. And I hardly ever get to that with the students. It's rare. I think in the last 15, 20 years, I've had about 3 students that do that, the technical patterns, because you're wasting your time. Just on a side note, you're wasting your time if you're doing technical patterns and you haven't done arpeggios yet. You're wasting your time. If you're practicing technical patterns and you don't know all the scales yet, and I mean all the scales, the majors, the harmonic minor, the melodic minor, we don't do natural minor in my lessons. Because of the tonalization studies. I hope that makes sense. Those of you who have been doing the tonalization studies, you know that the modes are already covered. Okay, so we don't do Lydian, Mixolydian, and natural minor is just a mode of the major. So we don't do natural minor. But all the symmetric scales, we've got the chromatic scale, the whole tone scale, the diminished scale, the augmented scale, and the tritone scale. So if you're not doing all of those, you should not be doing the advanced patterns, unless it's just for fun. But that's not really practice. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So the third type of session is where you do your music. And so, and I tend to do these things in this order, right? I do the technical routine, the physical routine first, and then the technical practice, and then follow that up with the musical stuff. Now, the musical stuff should last longer than all the rest of it. In terms of how much time you spend, that should be the longest part of your day. Because we teach the 50% rule, right? So yeah. And so the other question was similar. And now I'm trying to remember what that question was. Oh, I never responded to Raimo. Maybe that wasn't in an email. Oh, it was an answered email. Aha, that being filtered out. Okay. Picking up the trumpet after many years. Oh, here it is. The question was, if you only practice for 30 minutes a day, which should you get, the Chops Express or the daily routines? And so, that's a really cool thing about the way I teach. Everything is scalable. If you only practice 10 minutes a day, you can still do my method. If you only do 5 minutes, you can still do it. And remember, I teach what I call the art of accumulative practice. Okay? The traditional way to practice goes like this. You have to worship the trumpet god for X amount of time. If you don't worship the trumpet god for that amount of time, you will suffer. That's traditional practice. And I don't conform to that. I don't worship the trumpet god. And by the way, since we're talking about that, let me tell you about a conversation I've been having on Facebook. So this guy's telling me and I won't go into details about what we're arguing about, but he tells me about the music that we love so much. And I had to explain to him, I had to straighten him out. I don't do music for its own sake. I don't do music because I love it. I enjoy it, right? There's things about music that I do enjoy, but I enjoy it the way someone, let's say if I had become an engineer instead of a musician, I enjoy my work the way an engineer would enjoy his work if he did a good job, right? And for that matter, I enjoy music the same way I would enjoy being a janitor and scrubbing toilets. There's a, and I wrote a piece based on this. It's going to come out on my blog, right? There's a Bible verse in Psalms that says, "I'd rather stand at the door of the house of my God than to be an honored guest at a place where there's sin," right? I'm paraphrasing, and in one of the translations, I don't normally like this other translation, so I won't tell you what it is. But in one of the other translations, it says, "I'd rather scrub floors." And at the time, I was when I first read that, uh, you know, well, I won't even go into that. But at the time, the idea popped into my head. I would rather scrub toilets at church, right? I would rather scrub toilets at church than to be a someone on stage. Do you know? I hope that makes sense. So I do not worship the trumpet god. Never. I won't say that I never have. But for most of my adult life, this is not how it works for me. Okay, trumpet is, and this is what I told this guy. A trumpet is a tool that I use to love people. Now he had a problem with that. Who has a problem with that? He says, oh, I wouldn't go as far as to say that trumpet is just music is just a tool. Is music just a tool? If it's for loving people, would you say that's just a tool? So, but yes, the people who worship music have a lot of trouble with what I teach. A lot of trouble. Fortunately, most of them don't know about it, right? They're not coming and taking lessons or coming here, right? Anyway, so the answer to the question, and I'm going to dig into it a little bit. The answer to the question is that you want Chops Express for, now this was on the Physical Trumpet Pyramid video. Chops Express is for anyone who's practicing an hour or less, right? If you practice even a little bit more than an hour, then you can do the other books and get away with it. If you're practicing 45 minutes, do Chops Express. If you're practicing 50 minutes, do Chops Express. Okay, because it'll just give you more time to practice your music. There was a long time after I wrote the Chops Express book, right? And I knew when I was writing it that I was going to have a rough time going back to the daily routines. Because it's so easy to take Chops Express and just expand it out, So, like, for example, here's a great way to expand Chops Express to be a little bit more than just a 15-minute routine. You can do Chops Express, but when you get to the tonalization studies, you could do all 20 tonalization studies from another book. The Chops Express book doesn't have those, but you can take another book for that level that you're on and do the all 20 of the of the tonalization studies at that level. So that's a very appealing thing, for someone who's busy or whatever. Now you can make the routine exactly how long you want to make it. You can add stuff, take stuff away. So now, and the most important thing about why we want to keep it to 15 minutes is because of the 50% rule. The 50% rule says that at least half of your practice time should be practicing music, not exercises. Okay? It's very important for me to say this. I'm not famous, and I know I'm not famous. And, I speak here with a great deal of confidence because what I'm speaking about is my method. And I've been teaching my method for decades. I have not been teaching someone else's method for decades. I've been teaching my method. Now, has my method been influenced by other people? Yes. Specifically my teachers and of my teachers, more specifically Dick Schaefer, who was my last teacher, has had a whole bunch of influence in the way I teach, a whole bunch of influence. But I would be wrong if I said I teach his method. I don't teach his method. He taught me, and now I'm teaching the way I've taken all that, and I'm teaching my method. Now, and the reason I'm talking about this is this came up recently, and I want to clarify this, okay? Because there's some people who have this, when you have that kind of confidence, but you're not famous. And by the way, I don't want to be famous. Thank you very much. That doesn't appeal to me. It never has. And I have proof of that, okay? I'm not saying that just, well, I won't even go into that either. But this has come up recently. How dare you speak on these topics as if with that kind of confidence when the famous great players, famous people, great players, the so-called experts say something entirely different from what I do. For example, the whole trumpet worship thing, most of the greats teach what I call trumpet worship. I don't think they actually do trumpet worship, not most of them, but what they teach is that same trumpet worship that we were all taught, right? And specifics about what to do with lips and this and that, our cumulative practice and stuff like that. This is all stuff that I disagree with all of them. And how can I do that and be so confident? It's because of my experience as a teacher and my experience as a player. I don't need the public to justify me. I hope that makes sense. When I get emails like this, I'm a stranger to this guy and he's a stranger to me. He lives in Chile, right? He lives in Chile. When I get a email like that, I'm going to read it to you again, right? I bought the Trumpet Pyramid book and the daily routines a month ago. It's my tone has improved a lot and my trumpet playing skills as well. It's so well structured, smart, and effective. That's where my confidence comes from. Hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of emails and phone calls and that kind of feedback. That's where where my confidence comes from. And at this point, I really could care less who disagrees with me. I don't care how many people disagree with me. I don't care how famous they are. The stuff I teach works. Okay? Anthony says this may be off subject, but the trumpet player for Blood, Sweat, and Tears said the way he practiced was playing music. His logic was his scale slurs, etc. Not sure I understand him. You're talking about Lou Soloff, and that was a very. I went to his. He came to TMEA one year, and I happened to be there. It was a TMEA, maybe it was one. Back in the old days, they called it IAJE and then NAJE, the Jazz Association. It went bankrupt after that. But I got to see him at one of these conventions, right? And he was talking about that. He doesn't practice any exercises whatsoever. It's all music. So instead of playing long tones, he said that he plays ballads. And that's that. You know what I did? I went home and I tried it for like a month. That's how I am, right? That's how I am. Now, I don't try everything anymore. I used to try everything. I don't try everything anymore because I've been through enough of these now. I have a good idea of what works for me and what doesn't work for me, right? And I will say this too. And people have said this about the new books, not the old books, but about the new books, that my material is a lot more melodic. Yeah. Anthony asks if I agree with him. I'll say that I understand him, and that when he said that, when I heard that, it did influence. So, like I'm saying, my materials are a lot more musical now than they were before I heard him say that. I can't, because of the personality that I have, I can't not have a more structured routine than that. I have to have something that has more structure. So because with structure comes control. Okay? When you have structure, you have control over your environment. So in that regard, I disagree with him. But I do believe, so like for example, my long tones, right? They're based off of the Chickwit study. And I'm going to give you an example of, this is one of the newest ones I've written, so I might get it wrong, okay? But here's one of the newest examples of a long tone that I've written. That's my long tone, okay? And I didn't used to have, now that's, I actually got it wrong. Like I said, I probably forget it. But it's sort of like that. I'm using the harmonic minor on that particular long tone series, right? And I have the bend, the slow bend at the top, at the first part of it, and then I go up to the top. I have the fermata at the top, and then the fermata at the bottom. That's my long tone. And they're great. I call them expansion long tones. And yes, they are inspired. They're inspired by the Chickwitz study, and they're also inspired by Lou Soloff. But from that one thing I heard him say. So it's not, I wouldn't go so far to say is that I disagree with him, but I think that was a a a defining moment, right? That was a defining moment. Is a wonderful a wonderful uh, influence on and all of the new books. My teacher has me do things in order. That's good. I listen to her. Lip buzz, mouthpiece buzz, long tones, flexibility exercise. I am orderly person, then I do music. It sounds like very much like what I teach. That's the same order I teach. I put scales between the long tones and flexibility, but yeah, that's very similar to what I teach. Okay. Um. Anyway, any other questions? I see we might be stopping early today. That's all right. When I don't post it on Facebook, I didn't post it on Facebook today. When I don't post the announcement for this, then very few people actually show up. But that's all right. Um, been kind of busy and tired lately. Yeah, so Anthony says it works for me, right? That order is what you're talking about there. That is the physical trumpet pyramid. So, well, I'm not going to say that. So, but yes, that is the physical trumpet pyramid, and it's quite well. I'm not going to say that. No, I won't say that. Um, let me put it this way. I've been teaching the physical trumpet pyramid since before I wrote the book. Um, I had I had students in the 80s who still today say they remember all that stuff. So that's been my thing. That order used to be the cornerstone of my physical approach. Now that it's so old, that's no longer the cornerstone. The one range book is the cornerstone now. The one range book has in it this order that you're talking about, but but it's got so much more. It's so much more in terms of strategy and stuff like that. Anyway, any other questions? We might be quitting. I'm not saying I'm happy to quit. I just think it's kind of funny. This reminds me. The first gig I had with my jazz group here in Houston, it was such a roller coaster ride, right? It was at a place called Ovations. This is in the Village area, over by, they call it Rice Village. It's over by Rice University. The place is called it's on Times Road. Ovations. It's at Ovations, and we were booked for three Saturdays or something like that. And the first Saturday was great. We had a full house. It was wonderful. And I was flying. It was my first time doing that, right? My first time being the leader of a band, a jazz band like that at a club. The second time we were about half full. I thought, okay, well, that's not so bad. The third time, the third Saturday, nobody showed up. And that's what this is reminding me. I don't know if you guys can. I don't do much of these live things for other YouTubers, so I don't know how this works really. I guess I should, so that I know what it's like on your side. But I have an icon over here that tells me how many people are watching, so I can see. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I can see that, and and it's consistent, right? When I put it on Facebook, people show up. and it's just so much work, right? I put I put the I put it on I have to get up early in the morning. Make the video, not I mean I put the information and all that stuff so I can get a URL, and then I put the URL on my blog. I put the URL on my other website, and then I go about my day. And the idea is to post it at the exact right time so that people know to come in. And man, that's a schlep. So let me tell you since very few people are here and there's no questions. If you have questions, please feel free to interrupt, right? Um, what I've been doing all day, and it's been the last 3 days, and in fact, my practice has been at a minimum because of this. I noticed that the Tiger Music Store website is missing a lot of products because we made a big switch. We used to have a different platform, and we switched to a WordPress platform, which we should have done a long time ago. The other platform was horrible. It kept crashing. It kept making, when someone buys something and then it charges them and then won't give them the product. That's a horrible thing, right? And that old platform was having those kind of problems. So we changed platforms, but because it's such a different platform, we couldn't get all the products automatically on. There was no way to do that. So, and I guess we eventually just got distracted, and there's at least a few dozen products that still need to be put on that site. So that's what I've been doing, about 3 or 4. Anthony says, I think only the trumpet gods are here today. That's funny. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been doing computer work for 3 days. And I've been starting to get nutso, but that's why I didn't share it on Facebook, because I'm kind of under the gun because when I'm doing this stuff, I'm not practicing, not like I normally do. But the way I saw it is I don't have any gigs. This is the ideal time to get all that stuff caught up. That's how I see it. This is the ideal time to get it all caught up. And the thing is, I've been tracking over the past year and a half, and then some, but because of this new platform, I'm saying a year and a half. I've been tracking sales and how many products we have up, and there's a definite. Do you have a lot of trumpet stands? I have at the moment 4 of them. I don't know if that's a lot. One of them is inside my flugelhorn case, but I have 2 metal ones and 2 of the ones that roll up and go inside. I hope that. So I like those ones that go inside because it's very convenient for the gigs. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, using this time to get the shop, what do you call it, populated again. Okay, because I think we've been actually missing out on income with that. So yeah, now's the time to make sure that stuff is all. I have been writing still. I'm working let me tell you guys about a new piece. Oh, really? So yeah, they're cool, aren't they? What, I also got them. I like the one that goes in the case. I mean, inside the bill. It seems to me, now some people have said otherwise, but sometimes I'll travel with my trumpet in a soft bag, on the planes, like to South Africa or wherever, right? Um, and I like to put it in the overhead. And it just seems to me that if you have the stand inside the bell and there gets something pushing on it, then it might protect it from denting. That's how I see it. Now, the reason I carry a soft bag, in fact, I've got it right here. When I have to fly, this is the bag I use. And the reason I carry this when I fly is because it fits, right? These other bags don't fit nearly as well as this fits. This is an old Reunion Blues. I got this bag in 1980. Same year I got my flugelhorn. And I love this bag. I just, I don't, you can tell it doesn't look as old as it is. And that's because I don't use it much. My other bag, fits two horns, right? And I always carry my trumpet and my flugelhorn. So, but I don't do that when I travel because I want to have it. I don't trust in putting it anywhere else but in that overhead right above my head. And if that's too packed, I can put it under the seat in front of me and be real careful. So that's why I travel with that Reunion Blues bag. So well, we're getting more people in. Any other questions? So, man, it's been a weird week. I guess because of all that stuff, if I do like intense repetitive work, it does something to my mind. It's like, right? Anyway, what other questions do we have? What questions or comments or ideas or something? Oh, by the way, good news. We just passed 2,000 subscribers. Woohoo! Now we're up to 2,050. That's actually really cool, right? Let me see, exactly 2,053. Now, part of that is because this is Allstate season, right? I told you guys last week, or no, 2 weeks ago, Allstate music is out. And, the high school students are listening to the Allstate music. I happen to know that about 1/4 of those will unsubscribe again after January, right? Because of Allstate being over, they don't need this anymore, and they just unsubscribe. So, and that doesn't bother me, right? You guys know that about me. I'm not playing that game. Any other questions? If I don't get any more questions, I gotta close it down. Yeah, so the whole music worship thing. It's just amazing to me and you know what's so amazing about it is 3, 4 lessons, sometimes 5 lessons. People will come in here and you have to know, right? When someone comes to lessons with me, it's not that I'm so expensive. I'm not going to say I'm the most expensive teacher in town. I'm not going to say that, right? I'm more expensive than most other teachers in town. However, Add to that the fact that I'm not famous, right? And you know that if someone's coming to me for lessons, usually it's because they've got trouble. They're frustrated. They've tried everything else, nothing works. And they heard somewhere, I'm like, well, I won't say that, but they heard that I can help. And they're willing to spend that money on somebody they don't know, that the only reputation they have is that, hey, they can help people that have these kind of problems. But when we liberate them from the trumpet god or from the music god, because I do teach other instruments too, if they're taking jazz improv lessons, I have right now the only one of those I have right now is an alto sax player who's taking improv lessons with me, right? And also composition for that matter, right? I teach composition too. But right now I don't have any of those students. But yeah, they come in here and we get them liberated from the trumpet god, and they start to shine. Because that's what the trumpet god does to you. The trumpet god oppresses you. The trumpet god squashes you. The trumpet god takes all your confidence away. Right? Anthony says, yesterday I played my Con B5. It is from 1926, but I had it chem cleaned and had dents fixed. This trumpet still has good compression and sounds good. That's a nice horn. You know, when they're built and sound that good for that long and have good compression and stuff, that's a great horn, right? So yeah, some of these guys, they come in and the reason they're here, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they heard that I can liberate them. That's not why they're here. They're here because they heard that I can help them with their chops or whatever they think the problem is, right? And they come in and they'll say, oh, so and I don't just throw it in their face either, right? I don't clobber them with this. I give them an assignment in that first lesson. They come back in the second lesson and they'll say something like, oh, I'm so sorry. I only practiced 3 days this week. That's why I sound so horrible. That's trumpet religion talking. We don't talk like that because it's not true. None of that is true. You don't have to pay a price for not practicing. That's all false. Now, the accumulative approach to practicing demands that you practice correctly. So if you come into the lesson and you say, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Lewis, I know you told me to do it this way, but I just kept doing it my old way. Now that we can complain about, right? That we can say, hey, why are you taking lessons? Why are you wasting my time? I wouldn't say that, but yes, then we can say, okay, that's not a good thing. But if you say, oh, I only practiced 3 days last week and it was for 15 minutes each day, those 15 minutes each day, those days count. That's the accumulative approach. That's 45 minutes better than you were the week before. That's how I see that. That's my accumulative philosophy. You're now 45 minutes better than you were a week ago. Actually, you're probably more better than that because you don't turn your mind off and you keep growing even though you didn't practice so much. You know what's amazing about this approach, this accumulative approach, is that the students end up practicing more. I have this one girl student. Um, I guess I won't say her name. I normally wouldn't mind saying her name because she is in the public eye pretty often, but I won't do it now because I haven't gotten her permission. So I'm just going to leave her name out of it, right? But out of everybody in the world right now, she understands my accumulative approach better than anybody else. And you know, life for the school kids right now in terms of music is tough. The motivation to practice is not there. But she's practicing. She's practicing more than all the rest of them. And she told me, and not this past lesson, the lesson before, she said if it wasn't for this accumulative approach, she probably would not be practicing as much as she is. So with the few other teachers that I've shared this approach with, they've criticized me saying all you're doing is giving them an excuse to not practice because, look, I told you it's okay to do 15 minutes for 3 days. And the other teachers, because they are trumpet worshipers, trumpet, right? Because they are trumpet worshipers, they can't see it. They can't see it. And so that student, she's not a trumpet worshiper anymore because she understands how all this stuff works, right? And she says, like I told you, if she hadn't, because she's been doing the cumulative thing now for 2 years. It takes a while to learn it because I don't have it formalized yet. But she's been doing it now for 2 years. And she said that during this time when all these other high school students are not practicing, she's practicing more. Because it makes, you know, if you are a trumpet worshiper and you didn't practice, but if you only had 3 days of 15 minutes in the previous week, you have guilt this week. And that's what I mean by you have to suffer, you have to pay the price. You have guilt, right? You've got guilt now. And now, and there's this like psychological thing attached to that because now you're going to play terrible. I don't think that's real. I absolutely do not think that's real. I think the reason we play terrible when we don't practice is because we think we're supposed to. And I know this is a deep philosophy, right? I know this is very, very deep philosophy. And I hope most of you are, and I say most of you, I know there's only a few of you here right now, but people do read these, watch these later, right? So I'm talking also to the people who watch later. You know, there's a mental aspect that we manifest that guilt by thinking that we're supposed to sound terrible now. So then we get to the performance or whatever, and we do sound terrible because we think that's the way it is. And once you get into this accumulative approach to practicing, you start to understand on a very intrinsic level, deep down, that that's not the way it is. You don't have to. And in fact, right, that argument I'm having with that guy, he even gave me that quote, that trumpet worship quote that says, if I don't practice today, I know it. If I don't practice tomorrow, they know it. If I don't practice the next day, you know? And he's that's how the trumpet worship people believe. Right? You can be liberated from that. You can go weeks without practicing and it won't touch you. You don't have to suffer for that. I'm serious. You can be liberated from that oppression. You practice, look at me. I have stuff I have to get done. I haven't had a full day's practice in 3 days now. I probably won't practice a full day tomorrow. I probably won't practice on Monday because I want to get this stuff done. And I'm looking at maybe now that I'm looking at how many pieces I have left to go, I probably won't be done until Wednesday next week. And now's the time to do that. But still, when I'm done with that, I'm not going to look back and say, oh, I'm going to pay the price now. That's not how it works. And I truly, truly believe, I know I'm repeating myself, I truly, truly believe that the only reason it works that way for other people is because that's what they believe. That's what they believe. If you believe you have to suffer because you didn't practice, that's what's going to happen. As you think, so shall you be. I think that's the quote from the Bible. As you think, so you are, or something like that. If that's what you believe, if you believe you have to suffer because you didn't practice, that's what's going to happen. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can be liberated. You can be set free from that. Okay? Any questions? I've been blabbing my mouth off. That's partly because I had caffeinated coffee right beforehand. I don't normally drink caffeine, but I knew I had this to do, and I was very tired before this started, so I made a cup. And now I'm blabbing my mouth off. Any questions left? I should probably stop because I'm like preaching now. Not really, but you know what I mean. Any questions? Going. All right. Well, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, the rest of you, for hanging out with me. It ended up not being so short after all, and because I blabbed my mouth off. I haven't said so much about the accumulative practice in these Q&As. I've mentioned it a couple times. And the reason I don't talk about it much is because I'm still working the system out myself. Me personally, I've been doing it since the mid-90s. But the way I explain it to other people, I just don't have the words to say it. And that's why it's great working with that one student, because because she's doing all this stuff, it really does help me work out the system. Yeah, you too, Anthony. Have a great week. Thank you for hanging out. So we'll do this again next week, and we're gonna keep doing this each week, probably until the new year. With the virus stuff, I'm convinced that the gigs aren't going to pick up full steam until 2021. I might be wrong, but the way things look right now, because gigs are going to be the last thing to happen. There's two reasons for that. One is because people are terrified to have events, and the other reason is because there's going to be no money. So I really don't see gigs being back full swing until even as late as this time next year. So, you know what? You want to know how to tell if someone's a trumpet worshiper or not? Ask me how much that bothers me, right? Um, I don't have that. I don't have a, what would you call it? An emotional need to be in front of the audience or anything like that. I don't have any of that. So, anyway, very good. Thanks for hanging out, guys. God bless you. We will see you next time. Bye.